Well, I'm back, and I can't think of a better way to close this out than to see our work in action, hearing from the developers and nonprofits that use our APIs for real-world solutions. This was part of our most recent Good Code Hackathon, so I'm going to hand over to Charlotte Flanagan, Senior Director of DocuSign IMPACT. Over to you, Charlotte.
Here with me to talk about this year's event is Dr. Lillian Pintea, Vice President of Conservation Science at the Jane Goodall Institute, Carly Bergstein, Executive Director of the Andrew McDonough Be Positive Foundation, and Neil Sorter, student at Northeastern University and the winner of the Greater Good Challenge and Best Use of DocuSign in this year's Good Code Hackathon. So thank you all to our panelists for being here today. DocuSign's Good Code Hackathon actually originated from our annual customer conference, which we call Momentum, where in the past developers who attend participate in an in-person hackathon. Well, I think we all know 2020 disrupted a little bit of that and for our Momentum event, which was to be held in March. And so we pivoted to an online event days before due to COVID. And because of that, our in-person hackathon was obviously canceled. So the DocuSign developer advocacy team started really rethinking about the annual in-person hackathon. And they wanted to provide developers the opportunity to participate. And with everything happening in the world, really wanted to give developers the opportunity to also do some good. So the Good Code Hackathon was born. And our DocuSign IMPACT team, which we lead our philanthropic and environmental sustainability efforts, wanted to partner with the developer advocacy team to really facilitate partnerships with our established nonprofit partners like the Jane Goodall Institute. And the team also wanted to ensure that other nonprofits could benefit. So the Good Code Hackathon scope was actually broadened to include the Greater Good Challenge, where hackers could choose any nonprofit organization that's close to their heart and help that organization streamline a process using DocuSign products. So after the success of year one, we really decided to partner with the Jane Goodall Institute this year. JGI and Dr. Goodall herself have been a close friend and partner of DocuSign's since we launched our DocuSign for Forests initiative in 2019, when DocuSign and our CEO, Dan Springer, committed $1 million to the Jane Goodall Legacy Foundation. Just this morning, DocuSign employees got to hear from Dr. Goodall herself through a live conversation with myself and our CEO, and she shared with us why hope and action are so critical right now. She left me incredibly inspired, and I am delighted to kick off our conversation with Lillian from JGI. So Lillian, can you tell us a little more about the Jane Goodall Institute and talk a bit about your role as well?
Yes. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The mission of the Jane Goodall Institute is a healthy planet where people make compassionate choices about animals, other people's livelihoods, and the environment that we all share. And the focus of the mission, of course, is on understanding and protecting chimpanzees, but also working with local communities, engaging youth and everyone around the world to do his and her part in addressing these challenges. Next slide. I represent the science department at the Institute. I'm the Vice President of Conservation Science. Have been working with Jane for more, and the Jane Goodall Institute team for more than 20 years now. You could see here some of the pictures back in 2003, mapping with communities, facilitating and enabling local communities to map their knowledge of their land. I'm a conservation biologist by training, have been working in sub-Saharan Africa since '97, and I have more than 25 years experience applying geospatial technologies. Next slide, please. And the focus of my work now, when I'm not in the field, when I'm not with our teams on the ground, working with all our partners in academia and private sector, with our partners from other conservation NGOs, in really using science as this cross-cutting theme that brings together this important systems, animals, people in the environment, because we know that the issues of deforestation, the issues which chimpanzees are facing are interconnected.
Awesome. Thank you so much. In partnering with DocuSign on this year's Good Code Hackathon, I'd love to hear you talk more about the challenge that JGI chose and why.
Yes. So the Jane Goodall Institute is using the power of geography and geospatial technologies to integrate the traditional knowledge, local knowledge from the communities, from individuals working with us, and also combine this information with the best science and data available in order to support conservation decisions. And that power of geography and technology helps us connect then what people care about, what their needs are, with what are the chimpanzees' needs, what are the needs for the watersheds and healthy and broader healthy ecosystems. Next. That use of technology, geospatial technology and geography is happening not only in the with the local communities. It's happening in rooms like this one. This is a room in Arusha, in Tanzania, where we have been working with the Tanzania Wildlife Research Institute in developing a national chimpanzee conservation action plan. And as you could see here, we have two projectors actually displayed on the wall. One of them is projecting a software called Mirati, and another one is projecting ArcGIS desktop. And as conservationists working on the ground, we often don't have the capacity or the tools to integrate and make those tools work together a little bit more efficient, but we're trying to be creative. And in this case, you can see on the right, one of our colleagues is actually drawing on a paper on the wall, displaying in order for this information to be then digitized and used later. So we're trying to be creative, but it's really important to make these processes more efficient and effective in helping conservation. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So if you look at this map, this is another map from our conservation action planning process, which we have been facilitating in Eastern DRC. You see a number of organizations at the bottom of that map. Those conservation processes are complex. The challenges are complex. We're dealing with a lot of different organizations, with different members of the government and different stakeholders and interests. And having an opportunity to use maps, geospatial tools in a more collaborative way, where we can capture and share and have a more transparent record of interacting with this type of information would have been really useful.
Amazing. So when you were reviewing the submissions, of which I know there were many, what was it about the winning idea and project that really sealed the deal for you?
Well, and again, I thank you so much to everyone who participated in this and shared some really interesting ways and ideas how to look at this challenge. In this particular case, it really spoke to us the way how the ArcGIS platform and the DocuSign platform have been integrated, and the way how this different workflows have been merged. I really like that it didn't try to replicate maybe some mapping functions, and it truly leveraged what that powerful ArcGIS platform is already can offer, and bringing that into an environment where this experience can be more mainstreamed and a better more effective user experience was really important. I really liked the level of documentation of the mapping process. As I discussed, sometimes when you have so many different stakeholders, you do your best to capture of that, but having a place where the actual map and the reaction and the edits and the approvals are documented in one place, I thought was really good. And I really like just the level of detail in which the developers thought through what type of changes and needs maybe this conservation process might have. So I appreciated that.
Awesome. Well, I know, unfortunately, our winners of Team Collaborite could not join us today, but we would love to show all of you their winning submissions. So with that, I'm going to ask the team to press play and we'll check it out.
Collaborite is a collaboration platform that sits right between the GIS and e-signature services. It allows users to pull maps from GIS and builds an interactive version of the map. Then users can invite stakeholders to a review process. Every time user releases a newer version, it syncs the latest version of the map in a DocuSign envelope for the final sign-off. As you can see, I am signed into my ArcGIS account and have a map ready to be shared. I am also signed into my DocuSign account. As I log in for the first time, I can see that it asks me to integrate Collaborite with both ArcGIS and DocuSign. Let's do that using a very simple OAuth procedure. The main concept of triggering a collaboration workflow is called an audit. Let's create a new audit based on the map we previously saw in ArcGIS. Here I am putting in an accurate title and a clear, well-defined, and easy to understand description of this audit. Now let's copy the link to my map and paste it here. As I continue, I can clearly see that the exact same map is pulled in from my ArcGIS account and it's called version 1 of the map. Once I confirm, it takes me to the audit details page. This is the one that my stakeholders are going to see. Going to the Interactive Map tab, I can confirm that the map is indeed interactive. I can zoom in and out, see basic functionality like toggling the map layers on and off, displaying the legends, and so on. Going over to the Discussion tab, I can see a bunch of tools that I and the stakeholders can use to make comments and draw annotations directly on the map. Coming back to the details, notice a draft DocuSign envelope has been created for me and it will be kept in sync with this audit. Every time I release a new version of the map, a PDF file of it will be automatically attached to the envelope. The first version of the PDF is being generated in the background and will appear here. In the meantime, let's add a signer to the audit. They will be invited to review the audit and I can send out the DocuSign envelope once all signers approve of it. With a page refresh, notice that the PDF is ready and attached to the envelope. Let's open the DocuSign envelope to verify. Indeed, an audit metadata file and the PDF of the first version got attached. Also, notice the audit signer got added as a recipient. Here I have the complete privacy of adding any document to my envelope and customize them as I need. As you can see, just like my GIS map, I have full control over my DocuSign envelope. Let's save it and go back. I have the signer's email open in another window. They received an invitation email to collaborate on the audit by using a private and secure link. Opening the link, they can see the audit details. They can use any of the functionalities available in the interactive map. In the Discussion tab, they can draw and annotate directly onto the map and leave comments or notes. They have the option to approve the audit, or request changes. Either action will notify the audit creator. For example, this reviewer just requested some changes, and in the reviewer column you can see there is a red indicator beside their name. Going over to the GIS user's inbox, notice that a notification email arrived regarding the review submission by a signer. I also received in-app notifications for the comments as well. In the Discussion tab, I can see the comments and I can go over to ArcGIS to make the requested changes. I can mark comments as completed to keep track of things, and once I am ready I can release the next version of the map. Let's put in a small description of what's changed. It will create version 2 of the map and trigger the same flow that it did in the first one. Let's make sure both versions of the map exist. I can switch between the versions and see comments associated with each version. The signer will receive an email notification for this version as well. This time around, they are happy with the update and approve the audit. Once again I get a notification. Now that all signers have approved the audit, I can send out my draft DocuSign envelope for their sign-off. Notice that the latest version of the map got attached to the envelope. Let's send it out and see what's received on the other side. Now the standard DocuSign workflow kicks in and the signer gets an email from DocuSign. Opening the email I can verify both audit metadata file and the latest version of the map is present. Now the signer signs it off. Within a few moments, the envelope status of the signer turns green, indicating that this signer has indeed signed. Awesome, isn't it? Pro tip, if you have a regular set of reviewers, you can add them as your contacts on this page. That way you can easily search by their name when inviting them to an audit. Our work here is done. Let's close the audit. Now you understand how Collaborite facilitates the collaboration process and automates the whole workflow.
Fantastic. What an impressive solution to
Collaboration
the
platform that sits right between the GIS.
I think it just replayed.
Yeah.
Well, what an awesome and very impressive solution to the JGI challenge. And Lillian, I'd love to know, knowing that the hackathon only ended a short time ago, where do you see this going in the future, and what impact do you think it can have and really make for teams that are on the ground?
I would love to work with the DocuSign team, maybe engage also Esri team, and take it for a real world pilot testing. The first conservation action planning process, which it looks like will be engaged, will be in reviewing and updating the National Chimpanzee Conservation Action Plan in Tanzania with our partners, Tanzania Wildlife Research Institute and the Tanzanian government. So that would be a wonderful opportunity to pilot it. I would love to bring lessons learned, feedback, any, what worked, what can be improved, look at the costs, and then capture those lessons learned with our teams, and hopefully be able to come out with a version that can be operational, which we can start, integrating, training our internal staff and our partners and using it.
Well, that's super exciting. I can't wait to see it put into action. So thank you so much. Congrats again to Team Collaborite. And I want to shift focus a little bit to our other guests that are here with us and talk more about our Greater Good Challenge. So the Greater Good Challenge is an element of our hackathon where, as I mentioned before, developers can choose their own nonprofit organization to benefit from a DocuSign product using our APIs to really help streamline a process of theirs. So we received a huge response this year, and the winning app benefits an amazing organization, the Andrew McDonough Be Positive Foundation. And as mentioned, we have Carly and Neil with us to talk about the Greater Good Challenge. So thank you both so much for being here. Carly, I'd love to start off with you. I'd love to hear more about Be Positive and talk a bit about your role in the organization as well.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and for doing this, and to Neil for all of your great work, of course. As Charlotte said, my name is Carly Bergstein, and I am the Executive Director for the Andrew McDonough Be Positive Foundation. And I believe somewhere in a slide deck, there's a picture of Andrew, if you want to throw that up. And that's the only slide that I'll need. Just to explain to you all what the Andrew McDonough Be Positive Foundation does, we have to first tell you why the Andrew McDonough Be Positive Foundation was started. The boy on the screen is 14-year-old Andrew McDonough. Andrew was a seemingly healthy high school freshman. He played 4 games of soccer on a Saturday in January, and Andrew led his team to a Pennsylvania state championship. Within 48 hours, Andrew was in cardiac arrest, septic shock, and diagnosed with leukemia. That morning, the Monday morning, he wasn't feeling well. First, his family thought he had the flu, took him to the doctor. They thought maybe it was an appendicitis. And by the end of the day, he had the diagnosis of cancer. His heart had stopped, and the doctors told his parents he wouldn't live through the night. Andrew lived what his family calls 166 bonus days. During that time, Andrew never left the hospital. He was in the pediatric intensive care unit for almost the whole 167 days. They learned that on his second day of his hospital admission that his blood type was B positive. And that was so fitting. That was the way that Andrew lived, positive even in the darkest of times. During those 167 days of his illness, he underwent nearly 50 surgical operations. Andrew had 4 strokes at age 14. And a brain aneurysm. On July 12th, 2007, Andrew had his 4th stroke, and the doctors came in and originally told his parents they didn't think it was that bad. 10 minutes later, they came back in and said, "I'm sorry, we read it wrong. This is very bad." And Andrew has less than 48 hours to live. Andrew's dad's birthday was the next day, and his mom and sister will tell you that he held on not to die on his dad's birthday. And on July 14th, 2007, Andrew took his last breath in his Lynn 16-year-old sister's arms. While Andrew's family was in the hospital, they had so much support. They had people getting their mail, bringing meals, checking in on their house. And what they realized was that so many other people did not have the same support. Andrew's dad often travels around the country and says that if Andrew had to die from childhood cancer, he wishes that he would be the last child to do so. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I want you all to think for a minute about a child that's important to you in your life. Maybe you have your own child or a niece or nephew, little brother or sister. And then think about what it would be like to get a phone call after this webinar that that child was diagnosed with cancer. That is the reality for 46 families, statistically, every single day in our country. 46 kids are told that they have cancer, and 46 sets of parents are brought into that little room somewhere, along the way, and the news is broken to them. And even more tragic than that, Andrew was not the only child that died from cancer in our country on July 14th, 2007. Every day in our country, 7 kids lose their chance to grow up because childhood cancer takes that away from them. 49 kids every week. That's 2 full classrooms of kids that lose their chance to grow up because childhood cancer takes that from them. Oh, there's the classrooms. That is just a visual of the classrooms, but we don't need the rest of the slides. So you don't need to put them up. You could just keep Andrew up. Thank you. That is why the Be Positive Foundation is committed to fighting childhood cancer. And we have 3 main ways that we do it. First, we are a lead funder around the world in global research aimed at less harsh cures for children, less harsh treatment, and also cures for children. We're funding local projects, here in the States. We're involved in collaborations that are global. Our goal is to get the cure as fast as possible, wherever that comes from. We also help families financially of kids with cancer. Oftentimes when a child gets diagnosed with cancer, one or both parents, if they're lucky to have a 2-parent household, will stop working to be in and out of the hospital with the child. In doing so, income goes down, bills go up. We help families pay for anything that they might need in relation to their child's care. They can't make a mortgage payment because mom or dad isn't working. We'll make the mortgage payment. They can't paint their car payment, and it's the only way to get their child to and from treatment. We'll make the car payment. Unfortunately, we cover a lot of funeral expenses. We cover in medical bills that insurance won't cover. We cover, we had a little girl once who needed a prosthetic eyeball, and at her age, because she had cancer in her eye, and at her age, the recommendation was, because her face was growing so much faster than an adult, that she would need a new eye every year or so. And insurance said, no, we don't think so. She needs one every 5 years, maybe. Family didn't have the money to do it. We were able to come in and support. And lastly, we raise awareness and advocate on behalf of the kids. We want people to know that kids get cancer too. We want the government to be able to give more research budget to kids' cancer, and to work towards the day that every kid gets the chance to grow up. So that is, in a nutshell, the Andrew McDonough Be Positive Foundation and the work that we do to fight childhood cancer.
Wow, Carly, thank you so much for that amazing story and the background to who Be Positive is. This is incredibly, I was fighting back tears myself, so I can only imagine how many joining us today have just been super impacted by that. How did you first hear about this challenge specifically?
Sure. So I actually did not hear about this challenge until Neil approached us, which was really awesome. And what I didn't mention is that we raise a lot of our money on events on college and high school campuses. So we engage students all over the country, explain to them why fighting childhood cancer is so important, and help them build sustainable events on their campuses. And Neil knew us as a foundation from his time in high school, and reached back out to us when he was working on this project.
Awesome. Well, that's a great segue, Neil. I'd love to hear from you. What made you choose Be Positive for your project?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. I think geographically, those events that Carly mentioned, geographically speaking, Be Positive is very close to where my high school was. So we had a lot of events. They came in to speak once, and we had a lot of events like fundraisers throughout high school. And from there, I think I really started to believe in their mission since freshman year, and especially recently when I've learned more about Be Positive. I think that childhood cancer is an area that needs a lot more attention. And it was actually when I started this project, it was the first one that came to mind because I don't know, I think I've just been like, oh, nonprofit, that social good, Be Positive, just the first thing that came to mind. So I actually was just snooping around the website a little bit, trying to get a better understanding of like what the project actually was supposed to be, like what an agreement really is. And I wasn't expecting to find that Be Positive, like I wasn't expecting to find a specific project with Be Positive, but it ended up working out because I found that they had paper-based agreements that probably could be turned virtual, the agreements being between families who need support and Be Positive. So I really did it to get a better understanding of the problem statement, but I also really believed in the mission and it all worked out. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that background. Well, I'm really excited to share with all of you Neil's winning app in action. So I'm going to ask Stacey to share her slide and go ahead and play the video.
Hello, my name is Neil Sorter and I'm a rising sophomore at Northeastern University. My app is called Be Signature and I made it for the nonprofit Andrew McDonough Be Positive Foundation, whose mission is to help battle childhood cancer. Be Positive gives financial aid to families whose children have cancer for their medical expenses, where families currently send applications through mail-in forms. After reaching out to the nonprofit, I discovered they sometimes had problems reading applications and manually inputting data into Excel after the form was received, which also took a while to arrive through the mail. I tried to encompass all these problems with my solution. The landing page contains information like the criteria to receive aid, and links to 2 forms, one for the family and one for their social worker. The original agreement PDF had these 2 parts combined, but I chose to split up the signing, which makes it easier for both parties. The form's input fields are directly based off original PDF fields, and here we can see some pre-filled information for demo purposes. I split it up into 3 pages for a better user experience. The form also has validation, which eliminates the problem of missing or malformed information. Clicking Review and e-sign takes us to the signing ceremony, where we can review and edit any of the information that was input wrong. Upon submission, Be Positive will receive an email with a completed, legally binding form. Additionally, the info is entered into our database of patients. In the admin portal, Be Positive is able to see all patient information. Let's search for the patient we just signed. And clicking this accordion item will show all their information. We can also see that the social worker hasn't submitted their part of the form for this patient, so here Be Positive could remind the family to tell their social worker to submit the form. We'll do it on behalf of the social worker for now. Now searching again, we can see both forms are completed. And the information from both forms in the dropdown. There's also the option to see all patients in the database and their form status too. Finally, there are secondary links in the navbar to both forms, and external resources including Be Positive, DocuSign, and the MIT licensed source code. I designed the code so I can easily phase the app out of demo mode, and steps to do this include hiding the admin portal, getting rid of the pre-filled information, and converting from DocuSign demo envelopes to legal envelopes. To see more of my future plans and details about the app, including what tools I used, please see the full dev post submission or the GitHub README. Thank you.
Wow, incredibly impressive, Neil. I would love to talk more about your build process. You know, what languages and which frameworks did you use for your application?
Yeah, of course. So you saw a little preview in the video there, but mainly for the application, I used a React.js front end, and that was tied to a Node backend, a Node and Express backend. And then those backends communicated with the database, MongoDB. And additionally, it communicated with the DocuSign e-signature API. And I think the main reason that I chose this tech stack because I thought it was the most extensible. And also React was very familiar to me. I thought it would be a great way to design a nice user interface using React Bootstrap, which was a styling framework. And because I knew React, I thought that I could kind of extend the Node and Express quick start app that DocuSign had provided into something that was more extensible and could like a full client server application. And I actually had never used Node, Express, MongoDB, or DocuSign before. So this was a fantastic learning experience for me as well about how all these frameworks worked.
Awesome. Well, and the next question I have for you is what IDE did you use and would you recommend it?
Yeah, so throughout the process, I use Visual Studio Code, and I think that pretty much encompasses everything with all the extensions that it has. But I think that any IDE really works. I would recommend Visual Studio Code because if I did choose to have different languages for the front end and back end, I actually use JavaScript frameworks in React and Node for both the front end and back end. But if I had used different languages, then VS Code could have supported that. So yeah, I would recommend that. It was a good experience developing.
Awesome. And did you run into any unexpected issues while you were developing your app?
Yeah, so I actually expected to run into issues. So when issues came up, I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But just speaking to some of the main issues I had, one of them was a CORS authentication issue, trying to connect to the e-signature API. And I think this was because I extended the Quick Start app with a React front end, and React and the API aren't able to communicate directly, at least as far as my knowledge went. So I ended up having to use the Quick Start backend in Node and communicate with the e-signature API from there. As far as DocuSign goes, the API, at first, I took the PDFs from the Be Positive website directly, and I kind of changed them a little bit to make the automatic PDF transform functionality that DocuSign offers available, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. So I actually went through each field and anchor tagged all of them, which is anchor tagging is another feature that DocuSign's API has, the e-signature API. So I actually went through and anchor tagged all of them, which was a little bit tedious. It took a little bit of time, but I think it was worth it, and it turned out exactly how I wanted at the end. And since I hadn't really done this kind of app client server application before, I think deploying the app into production was also a pretty big challenge for me, because I had to figure out how to hide all the things like private keys and like all the API keys, and all that stuff I ended up putting into an environment variable in Heroku, which is the platform that I deployed it on. And I think figuring that out definitely took a while, and also like exposing information like my password for the database was obviously not what I wanted. So that was a challenge to figure out how to do. But of course, all these issues ironed out with time and got the app as it is today.
Awesome. You may have already answered this next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What was your biggest challenge when you created your application?
Yeah, so actually my biggest challenge was something else. It was since Be Positive initially had the PDF as the family and the social worker as one form, the way DocuSign, the e-signature API works at least, is that it needed two signatures. It needed the family parent signature, but it also needed the social worker signature. So I actually had to split up the submission of both forms into two separate components, which you saw in the video. And I think figuring out how to get the matchings between the social worker component and the family component was the hardest part. And what I ended up doing was matching it based off the patient name, because I think that was the only thing that was common. And along with that, I tried to map the data to a nice UI as well as possible. There was a lot of like embedded tables and like forms. Like after I developed the algorithm to make the matching, I had to present it in a nice way. So that was also difficult because I had to learn like how the coordinate items worked, and also the little icon saying, oh, it has the family sign, has the social worker sign. Those things were a little bit challenging to figure out, but yeah, also ironed out with time.
Amazing. So after all that hard work, what are you most excited about?
Definitely one thing I'm excited about is how much I've learned throughout the process. I'm really looking forward to in future projects or whatever careers I do, I'm looking forward to using like DocuSign or like Node, MongoDB, any of these things to benefit whatever maybe like whatever company I work for in the future because I'm still a student, or any personal project. And I think actually building something myself that makes people's lives easier that might actually be used someday is really motivating for me. I personally think that motivation is the key to like software development. If you have a good motivation, then you can easily develop whatever you want. You can learn new technologies, pretty much do whatever. And it's really motivating to know that some form of this application or this application might be used to help families who are already like so burdened with all these other things, in like they don't have to send forms and they can just do this quick form online and receive aid quickly.
Awesome. So Carly, I'd love to hear from you again. What impact do you see Neil's app making in the future on Be Positive, and how could this help your organization if you put it into plan?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Neil. I'll be honest, I am not a developer, so I was listening and learning as well. We're looking forward to hopefully implementing this at the start of next year. I think this will cut down our staff time incredibly. I think it will also allow for social workers and families to get help quicker. And the reason that I say that is because sometimes the handwriting is illegible on the applications, or we can't determine a number and an address, and then we mail a check and it gets sent back to us because it wasn't written clearly. And then what happens is we review applications every week. So the longest that a family will ever have to usually wait for assistance from us is 7 days. And we know that the families need the money and they need the monies quickly. And because of that, I think this will really help us just move things along. We won't have to have as much back and forth with the social workers that support the families and that send us the applications. We'll have clearer information. It'll be easier for us to search for kids that we might have helped before that are in need of help again. There are really a lot of possibilities, but I think the most important one is just the speed of getting the help out to the families and the accuracy of getting the help out to the families.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. Something that I love about our impact programs is just the ability for when nonprofits are able to use technology so that they can spend more of the time doing what they really do need to do and give services to the people that they're really trying to help, or the animals or whoever it might be. That's one of the best stories that I think that we can have. So, well, in support of both the Jane Goodall Institute and the Be Positive Foundation, DocuSign would love to help you implement these important apps for your organization. So we'll be making grants to both of your organizations, which I'm hoping you will receive by the end of November. And I just want to thank Carly, thank you, Lillian, thank you, Neil, so much for being with us and bringing the DocuSign Developer Conference full circle to really show how the code that we can create can make a difference to support wonderful organizations like yours. It truly is good code. So I want to thank you all again. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Neil. It was great to see you here and all your good work.
Thank you.
Thanks for this opportunity.
Wonderful. All right. Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are.
Thank you.
And that concludes the 2021 DocuSign Developer Conference. I know. Well, I hope you enjoyed the content, learned something new, and have something to take back to your work lives. I want to say a massive thank you to the speakers, to the organizers who put this all together and actually selected me to host this, and a massive, massive thank you to you for tuning in for the last 2 days. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you next time. Lauren out.